Starting this class off by listening to others' math histories was really valuable to me because it helped me realize that many students have negative associations with math. Upon entering tutoring, I gave my students an assessment so I could see how they felt in math class, what they thought it took to be successful in math, and what they knew about certain math concepts. It was very informative and gave me a good feel for where my students stood in math. I discovered that my students felt successful when they got things right, but when they got problems wrong, they felt dumb, inadequate, and discouraged. Their encouragement was directly connected to their ability to solve problems correctly, and this was very limiting. There needs to be another source of encouragement because success doesn't come without mistakes. This was my new predicament. How can I teach students mathematics, encourage them to push on when their understanding of success is the ability to answer questions correctly? Success comes with exploration, mistakes, and reflection. This is how depth of understanding develops. Over my time with my students at Taylor, I discovered a few things that can help encourage students to truly engage in a way that promotes success in math. First, if my students were to feel comfortable enough to explore methods of problem solving and enter a state of vulnerability, I needed to make them feel welcome and establish clear expectations that created a safe and respectful environment where students could make mistakes. Sunshine and cloud discussions established my care for my students while giving me an understanding for how they felt that day. As the sessions continued, I learned that this was not enough. I had to constantly remind my students that it was okay to make mistakes, and mistakes were actually helpful because we could learn from them. Establishing expectations was very important. Every start of a session, we would review the rules of tutoring. Cue cards and nonverbal cues like hand motions were also helpful in establishing expectations. In terms of academics, providing my students with an objective for our time together was really important. Not only did this ease the students' nerves about what we would be doing during tutoring, it also gave them a clear view of the task at hand so they could have the end goal in mind, gaining purpose for what we were learning. Closer to the end of my time at Taylor, I found that explaining why expectations was most helpful. It took a while for me to realize that the reason was important for students. Secondly, giving my students ownership in the sessions was very important in order to encourage risk-taking. As it turns out, when students see their work all over the lessons, they understand their work and input as valuable, encouraging them to continue this risk-taking for the purpose of learning. If everything is teacher-centered, the concept of right and wrong is more heavily present, so risk-taking is scary. At first I thought having students explore and create in their journals was giving them enough ownership, but later I incorporated their problems from previous sessions into the lessons that we did together, and seeing their work as valuable information for learning increased their interest in taking risks. I loved this discovery. Keeping my students engaged was really important for their growth in mathematics. Over my time at Taylor, I discovered new ways of keeping students engaged. My favorite one was including their own story problems in instruction during the following lessons. Another way was offering choice to the students. I noticed that the more my students were engaged, the less anxious they were about math. The times I caught myself allowing students to be less engaged were the times when their nervousness about the content grew. When students are engaged, they are distracted from their fears of a subject, and authentic learning can take place. Assessment was also very valuable in my tutoring sessions by providing me with the knowledge I needed to plan the next session and sessions beyond that. For example, the assessment about students' understandings and feelings in math helps me plan my lessons in ways that would encourage my students and keep them pushing forward. Academically speaking, assessing my students and their ability to write story problems helped me understand what they knew about story problems and the tactics they used to solve problems. This assessment informed multiple lessons for me. I believe that I gained significant growth in teaching through this field experience. I know that I learned the value of assessment and engagement and different ways to incorporate these into teaching. Through this growth, I found some answers to my question, including the facts that establishing expectations, creating a welcoming environment, keeping students engaged, continually assessing students, and giving students choice and ownership are all good ways to encourage students to work hard in math. Merely finding an correct answer does not determine if you can be successful. I plan to have all of these attributes incorporated into my future classroom because I want my future students to know that finding success means working hard and making mistakes first. I look forward to doing more experiences so I can learn more ways to encourage students to do this and find joy in any subject they are learning.